Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Beam Talks. And today we're here with Anthony Beaumont from Encode Club. Anthony is co-founder there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Could you tell us in a few words or in a lot of words, what are you doing and what is Encode Club?
Sure. So Encode Club is a university and hacker blockchain community. It sits online. We organize a lot of events like hackathons and accelerators. And the idea is to increase blockchain adoption, mainly at universities, with a view to finding some fantastic early stage startups.
Oh, so you specialize on blockchain products?
We're only blockchain. We're only blockchain.
And you're based in London?
I'm based in London, yeah.
And I believe that before the Corona times, you mostly worked kind of offline, organizing meetings, but today you're totally global, right?
Yeah, we used to do everything offline. Originally, we did it just in the UK and Europe, and that was fun, lots of travel. But when COVID kind of hit in March, we transferred everything online. And honestly, that was an absolute blessing in disguise. It allowed us to reach so many more universities. We're now present in 6 continents and reach so many more students than we used to. So it was a real blessing.
So you can say that it kind of was a time of growth for you, like you suddenly discovered new frontiers.
Massively. A year ago, we hadn't, 7 months ago, we'd only just finished our second hackathon. By February, March this year, we will have finished our kind of 5th. So we've grown, and we've run a couple of accelerators in that time too. We've added probably a couple of thousand students. It really has been a period of growth.
So how do you reach students? Do you like advertising universities, or do you cooperate with universities? How does it work?
Yeah, so what we do is we go and partner and sponsor with student clubs and societies, usually blockchain, computing and entrepreneurship at every university we work with, which is quite a long onboarding. We try and have a relationship with every single one of them. And then once they're on board and they want to take part, they become our distribution means. So we use their mailing list, we use their social media, and the very keenest sits and live on our Discord, which is a community where everyone can be engaged with each other. We go for quite a decentralized model of doing things.
I see. So first of all, we will put the link to our Discord in the description so everyone can join.
Nice.
Yeah. There is one thing that I have always wanted to ask hackathon organizers, and now I finally can do it. I think that in most cases, people who go to these hackathons are either, computer science or computer engineering majors, right? So mostly. But it's always interesting to me because, so as you know, I'm working at Beam project for over 2 years, almost 3 years, very soon. And so of course there is a lot of development, a lot of hardcore, cryptography and mathematics and software engineering, but also there is a lot of demand for softer things like product management and UI, the aesthetics, or more broad thinking, I think. So I wanted to ask, do you ever approach students from other disciplines other than computer science? Do they participate?
Absolutely. I think that the fact that we partner with a lot of entrepreneurship societies really allows us to get a more business-minded, I hate to use the term business-minded, but more business-minded student. And I think we get a lot from scientific backgrounds, a lot from economics, a lot from maths. And you'd really be surprised how well-rounded some of these kids are and these researchers. And I think when I notice when the UI and the UX is outstanding, as well as the back end technicality, you're onto an incredibly good hacker, because it's not just building what they build, but being able to present it in a way that can be clearly and cogently used is the real skill of a good hacker. So definitely we kind of get all backgrounds. The only background we like people to be a little bit technical. I think if you're not technical in some way, you don't really get the most out of blockchain, or at least the way we present it. We have had a trading challenge previously, and that was our first non-technical challenge. But in general, we like people to be just a little bit technical to get the most out of things.
Cool. How did you personally, get started in crypto? What brought you into this rabbit hole?
Yeah, I have the least glamorous story of all. Everyone has these things about discovering Bitcoin in 2014. I didn't do any of that. I actually had very little interest, bar kind of passing curiosity in the space. And when I graduated, I worked for a politician. And I didn't really like working for a politician. I actually studied politics at university. And I wanted to go into VC because I'd run a startup at university. And that's quite a naive view because it's very difficult to get into VC. And so I saw this blockchain VC and I thought, I'll go for that. That sounds cool, knowing very little about blockchain. And I got the job and it was great. And I kind of got thrown into it. And this was the start of 2018. So that was quite funny because, of course, the market was very high at that point. And it's only really gone down, apart from maybe this year. I'd had an experience of it only going down. So I thought I was cursed. But it seems after the summer, I'm not quite cursed. But yeah, so I've nothing glamorous, just wanted to get into VC.
That's interesting because before I started working at Beam, also it was the beginning of 2018. We kicked off at March, so we probably started the meetings like a couple of weeks before that. And I also had absolutely no relation to blockchain or crypto whatsoever. I didn't even own like a single Bitcoin or anything else. In fact, the first coin I actually owned was Beam that we have created.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's very nice.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, most of the team did not have prior blockchain experience, and I always joked that we would be never accepted. If we went to just an interview in a blockchain company, no one would take us because we didn't have any experience. But we managed to do quite a lot during this time, despite that, and learned everything like from scratch. So
yeah,
we're in the same ballpark of
absolutely.
Yeah, so cool. And so today I believe you're kind of an expert, like seeing a lot of different projects from a lot of places.
Certainly not an expert. I think that I defer to much more intelligent people on the deeply technical side. I know a lot of hackers. I know a lot of developers. I actually maintain a spreadsheet of every single hacker, I think, in the space. At least those that have done hackathons over the last 2 years, which I think is broadly most developers. Obviously, you can add developers employed by blockchain companies or employed by non-blockchain companies working in blockchain. Broadly, I know how many developers are in the space and what they're doing, and I'm good on that side. But probably on the smart stuff, I defer to better people.
Do you have any like interaction or partnerships with like recruiting companies? Because obviously you are the best place to go if you want to find talented students or beginner programmers.
Yeah, no, we don't have anything formal. We do it completely pro bono at the moment, and we've been pretty good, as you can imagine, at placing people and helping people find developers, and even non-developers sometimes. It's not something we do formally. It's something we are going to be hopefully doing more formally next year. But I think we've got an order of things we want to do. The community's been great this year. More hackathons. We have accelerators now to help the hackathon projects get to the next stage. We've got a new fund launching towards the end of this year. Well, it is the end of the year, so next month, that will invest just in hackathon hackers and university researchers. Next thing after that, I'd hope, is the recruitment piece. But for now, we do it out of the goodness of our heart, which it's good for the community. Someone gets hired coming out of Encode Club. They think greatly of Encode Club. If you hire from us, you think greatly of us and are more willing to invest back into the community, which leads to good positive externalities.
Yeah, totally. What like project stands out, like something that you remember, like an amazing project that someone did at your hackathons, maybe to give an example of what's possible?
Yeah, so the winner of our summer hackathon was a project called Euler, named after the mathematician. And this is a compound competitor, compound for the long tail, so that anyone can create permissionless lending markets for any coin, which you can't really do at the moment. It's run by an Oxford researcher who studied or his expertise is in evolutionary biology and the game theory of it. So not blockchain. He went through one of our hackathons. And we encouraged him to do this project. We helped him find a co-founder. We actually helped him with his first hire, and they won our hackathon, and they've just raised $800,000 in pre-seed. and I'm hopeful they'll be a big player in the DeFi space shortly enough. So they're my. Also, I went to Oxford, so them being an Oxford kind of project makes me very happy, because we haven't had anything come out of Oxford yet, not of significance. So that I want them to be the big representing Oxford going forward.
Sure. So yeah, good luck to them. It sounds amazing. Actually, I will take a look into that. I'm learning a lot in the process. Because actually what like from my perspective, one of the things that I find like really amazing is this unique combination of technology, economics, and like sociology in a way that is involved in crypto in general, because obviously it's the first time that the money was actually like completely decentralized and mathematical, but it also opens a lot of new opportunities in many different areas. So obviously cryptography exploded in recent years because of the crypto and blockchain projects. A lot of problems that were once considered like theoretical and not very sure where to apply it suddenly became extremely practical. And for example, some of the algorithms that we are using today, and a lot of projects are using like something kind of obvious already after a couple of years, like bulletproofs, for example, which is like very compact zero knowledge range proofs. That's something that didn't exist like only a few years ago. And that's like one area. But also I think economics with things like flash loans, for example, and you hear a lot about them in the context mostly of all kinds of exploits and scams, but it's a very interesting concept, and it couldn't really exist exactly like that in traditional finance. So I think that universities, the research departments, and they definitely should be very interested in having their students also participate in this kind of events, because it kind of brings together the theory and practice, and there are a lot of possibilities. You have like completely new space, which is kind of amazing.
I agree.
Yeah. So Beam is going to participate in your next hackathon, right? The closest one.
Yes.
Okay, great. So could you tell us a few words about like when it's going to start or things like that? What's the date, like the dates or?
Absolutely. So this is our fourth hackathon to date. Our format is always, our hackathons are quite long. They last 10 weeks. The reason for that is I think there's a significant learning gap to be traversed with blockchain, especially with smart students who, most of them are new to blockchain. So we like to do 5 weeks of learning, and that leaves 5 weeks of hacking, which is plenty. I think that's still longer than every other hackathon. And it's a model we've had not just when we were online, not just when we were offline. We've had that model since day one, give people longer to build better hackathon projects. So we're getting started actually this week. This is week one. We go through then, we do 10 weeks and we go through to pretty much late January, almost into early February. That it will have workshops with your brilliant self, hopefully, and many other brilliant kind of developers and partners. And the idea is hopefully we get some amazing projects built, not only on Beam, but on in general, showing off the fine university hacker talent that there is, not just in Encode, but more widely.
Definitely. From our side, we're bringing also a lot of interesting stuff. And I'm saying that if by accident somebody who is participating or wants or would like to participate is watching this, we're bringing basically the newest thing that we have in Beam, the smart contract platform that we have added. And it's very, very young. Like it's just have been developed. It's very hot out of the oven. And I think it's great because it gives us an opportunity to kind of learn together, receive feedback, and also the students, because it's currently only being deployed to a test net. It's not on our mainnet yet, which means that we can modify it as we go along. And I know for some projects it's not possible. Like if you're building something on Ethereum, you cannot expect suddenly to add a function to a virtual machine. But in our case, it will be possible. So it kind of gives an additional layer of interaction where hackathon participants can say, listen, I want to build this, but I'm missing this function. Could you please add it for me on like more basic layer, and we can do that. So I think it's going to be amazing. We have chosen WebAssembly for our virtual machine, which means that it's an industry standard. There are a lot of programming languages available, and also a lot of tools. And so basically, even if you're not going to continue in the blockchain space, you will still learn a lot, because this technology is widely applied in many different areas, browser development and, blockchain development as well. A lot of projects use these technologies. I think it's going to be amazing.
Me too. I'm very excited.
Yeah.
You guys have been on my wish list for a while. I've been wanting you guys to be part of the hackathon. So I'm delighted to have you this time.
It's great, and yeah, we're delighted to work together, because I think in this case, like, I think this is the base format, especially because of the long hackathons. Because I usually participated or heard about like these short 24-hour, 48-hour events. And for me, it sounded like kind of a chore. Like you sit in a room with 3 other guys for like unlimited amount of hours, eating pizza and drinking Coke or I don't know what. And it's kind of exhausting. But here you can actually, invest time. You can do it more like, relaxed and go deeper in many things and not cut corners where you don't have to. And of course, I think like with most projects, there will be a lot of interaction. So we will provide a lot of immediate support, not just, limited to answering questions, but also having like architecture or design discussions or providing graphics. So we will provide a lot of help and support to this process. So I think it's going to help.
I am looking forward to it.
Yeah. So let's talk about like a couple of things more crypto. Beam is a privacy coin. What do you think about this, like in general, privacy, crypto?
I think it's essential, honestly. I think it has to be built in by design, quite frankly. I think that, you need privacy, ultimately. It's something that the real world systems, I say real world systems with a pinch of salt, don't really have built in. And we see such archaic models right now of what's used that work, that fundamentally are functional. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But I think there is a craving for something a little bit more democratic, a little bit more decentralized, a little bit more trustless, and a little bit more private and anonymous. Whilst I have bigger theories on if this will happen or not with our real world systems, I think it's an obvious benefit to have privacy built in.
Yeah, we have been obviously like doing this from like day one, and it was like 3 years ago almost. And I think there was a lot of movement from both sides. Also, like the regulation and the technology from the other side have like kind of moved towards each other. And for example, it was just like a year and a half ago, we were trying to devise, so we have something called Optin Editability. So Beam is a privacy and completely confidential. Everything is confidential. There are no identities on the blockchain and all the amounts are encrypted. However, if you would like to, for example, to be able to prove to someone that a specific transaction actually happened between two people, you and somebody else, or like disclose some information about this transaction for like auditing purposes or tax authorities or whatever, you can do that. It's like up to you. You don't have to, but you have this option. And the idea was that Beam is actually practical in the real world. So businesses can use it. Even like if I'm a regular business, I would like to be able to, pay taxes and do all these things that businesses do with accounting and stuff. So you can do that on Beam. And when we went to design this mechanism, we went to one of the big 4 companies that are actually, consulting a lot of different institutions, including banks. And at that point, the consensus was that it will not work unless you are basically as transparent as Bitcoin. So they kind of claimed that the regulators and the industry came to expect this kind of transparency. So you basically should be able to trace the entire like life cycle of the UTXO when it was mined and when it went and things like that. And it was, of course, very difficult to combine these two, like confidentiality and this kind of transparency. So I can prove things about myself, but I obviously cannot prove things about somebody else on a confidential blockchain. And now, recently, like we heard a lot of kind of evidence that this is actually not the demand. So you still can report your earnings or whatever transactions you have without actually having to provide this entire traceability like you hear on organizations like Chainalysis and such. You don't really need all that, and it will still be acceptable in like many cases. So I think it's a good sign. I think it's a sign that people realize that this combination of privacy and crypto is essential for like everyday business. Because obviously, if you're a major investor, or if you're like a company, you wouldn't like to, everyone to be able to just see what you're doing on the blockchain without even your actual approval. And so I think things are moving towards each other, and I think it's good. So I also believe it will be the future, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for me it's amazing like how people like on Ethereum, for example, participate in large transactions in DeFi without like any concern for privacy. Like anyone can see that, front running, whatever.
Yeah,
a lot of things can happen.
absolutely. Well, brilliant.
What was your like most like which areas of crypto you are interested in personally? Scalability, DeFi, like what?
I don't know. I'm kind of, as you can imagine, quite obsessed with adoption, just because a lot of our developers are kind of the users. Like, I think sometimes people don't realize this. Like, the developers that our partners want to reach are effectively going to be their users, or at least they're going to be the people building the applications that should be getting the users. At least I think this is the intention in general, even if it's not stated as such. And so I'm kind of I always have a healthy skepticism about what's happening in blockchain, about what can be achieved, and what how you achieve adoption. I'm always particularly skeptical about things outside of the blockchain world, perhaps entering into the real world and the relationship between blockchain and the real world, because I'm not seeing many signs of adoption, honestly, outside of that in our day-to-day lives. And I think business is probably very tentative, but I think fundamentally there's a quite interesting socio-economic idea of power and control around blockchain, which is that if you want something to be, if you want to use blockchain for a particular task, a big general task, I don't know, like a financial system or voting or supply chain management, you are effectively saying that the arbiter of truth is going to be this blockchain. Like the blockchain is going to be the state of affairs of what's happened, and it's going to be there, and you can't change it, and no one can mess with it. I don't see why those that again, I'm speaking very general terms. We can be specific, but I don't see why big institutions would want to give away this power, particularly if the current system benefits them. And there's a lot of political theory about how systems change, and it's not because this would be a good thing to do. It's usually because there's an existential threat or reason to do it, or there is a huge consensus that it has to be the case, and a threatening consensus. I don't see this. I'm not seeing the baying masses go, our voting should be on the blockchain, or we need digital currencies, or we should know how much of the currency is in circulation at any one time, or a supply chain should be mapped on a blockchain. I'm not saying, I think this is very much a minority thing. So I'm healthily skeptical, but also interested in how adoption can actually take place. And I think that has to be by the growth of crypto within crypto. It's the building out decentralized finance more, building out some of the NFT stuff, building out the privacy stuff, building out the tooling, because it's not all there yet. Sorry, that's a long answer.
No. Actually, I wanted to. I would like to expand on that a little bit, because if like one of the things that is happening outside of the economics in crypto is the idea of DAO, the decentralized autonomous organization, right? So it's basically the framework in which you can do these things in like more political or like other decision making. And do you think that's something that can be viably integrated into our existing or like any like framework of actual laws? And can this really work in the real world?
No,
DAO?
absolutely not. If you break what a DAO is a voting system where effectively everyone has the same share or a share linked to something, perhaps capital in some cases or influence, and the voting is done on chain. If you strip that back, if you look at the DAOs that exist now, like you've got DAOs that manage protocols, I can understand that. That's effectively like a governance model. Okay. Well, you don't really need to do that on chain, quite frankly. Like charities have run particularly well, and foundations in the real world without you needing this kind of bogus on-chain voting, which is really inefficient and creates a barrier to entry. I mean, you see fund models, but like that's just like we've looked into DAOs quite deeply. Like an investing DAO is a very basic LLP or LLC with on-chain voting. And so if you think like, right, what are the principles of a DAO? Okay, everyone participates in the decision-making process. Yeah, but what are you going to use a DAO for? Like, you're not going to have we're not going to go back to direct democracy where everyone has a say or we're going to have referendums going to be very common in a particular country, and we're going to run that on a DAO because there's a bigger political question of whether you want everyone to participate. And maybe in places like Switzerland, where direct democracy is a thing, I can see a world where you might say DAOs could be great for this, but I'm not sure what problem you're solving by introducing blockchain technology here, because there are structures to already do this. So I'm not very bullish on DAOs at all.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. So we have been researching that a lot, obviously, because not only in general scientific interest, but now, for example, some things that run kind of like DAO, and let's take MakerDAO, for example.
Yeah.
They have some regulatory implications, maybe, and now, like, how would this work? How would you regulate such a thing? A topic for another day, definitely. So we can talk about this for hours. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. I think some things they will have to to kind of evolve into. Maybe not DAO as is, but some things will kind of make their way into general politics as well.
Yeah, I think governance models are more rather than I have DAOs as a legal structure. I have views on. I mean, you're going to get governance models in crypto that are interesting if you have governance linked to the token itself, and that the token is fairly widely distributed, you're going to get some peculiar models. And obviously Maker's had its own problems, and there are other ways to do it. I think in general, the way tokens are governed is that the founders usually can do what they want and think they have a lot of control, and that we haven't really seen situations where for massively popular protocols, where there are kind of big governance issues, where it's like, okay, there are serious debates on where this is going to go, and we need everyone to vote in a coherent way. You're going to get some really interesting political questions. I haven't really seen, apart from in Maker, I haven't really seen any instances where this has been really interrogated, which just leads me to think that the votes are fairly simple and is reserved for those who have the most share and the most influence and the most access, which isn't actually very democratic, by the way, but it's very practical.
Yeah, of course. Like, establishing it is not enough. You also need to make sure somebody doesn't have like 51% already from the day one. And...
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So do you have like any other questions for me or topics that you would like to talk about here, or?
I think I'm good, really. What is Beam's? Maybe one. What is Beam's route to adoption? What's your kind of game plan to make sure Beam is the thing in the next 10 years?
Okay, so we started with the idea of building the best privacy coin, and we kind of got there this year. I won't bore you with the technical details, but we have modified the protocol. We started with a little bit, added some new layer, and reached I think what we can call best-in-class confidential cryptocurrency. And then we started to think, like, what else can you do with Beam? Like, what else can you do with these coins, or like new types of assets that you can create on Beam, which is something that we also added recently. You can do today. It's basically the same idea as ERC20 tokens, but you don't need contracts for that. It's just this layer one capability. And eventually we realized that we would need some kind of smart contracts capability. even though initially we thought we can do without it. We have these like kind of had ideas of like scriptless scripts and all these technologies that don't require smart contracts. But we found out that would not be enough for the things that we want to do. So we added those. And this is exactly the point where we will, like in a couple of weeks, show this to the world, what we've created. And our hope eventually, like if we discuss, the big picture or like the long-term strategy, it boils down to privacy, decentralization, and usability, because we think privacy is essential. And we think that decentralization is an important goal that you should strive to achieve, even though it's not always like very easy or possible or convenient, but ultimately it has value to be as decentralized as possible in many cases. And usability, because everything is crypto, is very difficult to use. And, when I try to explain to my parents how this whole thing works or how to use it, I run into big problems. And it's important for adoption because it's kind of, just like security and usability sometimes are in direct opposition to each other. Like if you have like 10-digit PIN on your door, it's very secure, but you have to type in 10 digits every time you open your door. So it's kind of, you have this trade-off between these things. And also decentralization, interestingly enough, it moved a lot of responsibility to you, right? So it's decentralized. So you are now responsible for keeping your keys safe and for doing your transactions right and for not mistyping your fee so you don't pay $1 million in fees accidentally and you have no one to call. It's not like your bank. You can say, oh, listen, I made a mistake, and you do something. Here you are all alone, against this quite intimidating technology if you're not familiar with it. And a lot of people are really scared of making a mistake, mistyping an address or doing something wrong, and then it's gone, and you have absolutely no control over it. So I think usability is one of the key factors. Like if you are able to make this technology simple to use, reliable, trustworthy, and so you don't have this panic attack every time you send Bitcoin from your hardware wallet, which I do, by the way. Like every time I have to compare these strange numbers and make sure I compare some from the middle and some from the beginning and some from the end. And it's stressful. So these are the three things that we would like to achieve, and combine together with like being able to trade or to move any type of value, whether it's crypto assets or maybe in the future synthetics, represent anything you would like on chain and trade it. So this is, I think, our road to where we are going in the next few years. It will take time to get there, but I'm fairly optimistic.
What do you say when your parents ask what you're doing?
Oh, I really work hard. I try to explain. But the problem with my parents is that they think that fiat money means something. That it's like, oh, but this money, it's like backed by the government or the country or whatever, and your numbers are not backed by anything. So this is the major problem for them, and they can't really move past that. So like, yeah, but what is it backed by? And then you start to explain, yes, but these things are also not exactly backed by, and this is where the discussion gets complicated.
Yeah. It is tricky. It is tricky.
Not to mention the fact that you can hold something worth $10,000 today, 15 tomorrow, and 5, day after that. So yeah,
of course, it does undermine one's case a little bit.
yeah. My parents were born in the Soviet Union from back when, in the communist countries. For them, all this market idea is kind of like, stay away from.
Fair enough. Very interesting.
Okay, so it's been great. Thank you very much for joining.
Having me.
Definitely. And we will continue, working on the hackathon together.
Oh, we're going to have a great time in the hackathon. We're going to onboard the next generation of students onto Beam, which is the most important thing.
Yeah, it will be amazing. Great. Thank you very much.
Alex, thank you very much, and have a lovely evening.